From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Inside Politics.
Hello, everyone. I'm News Channel 5's political analyst, Pat Nolan. Welcome to Inside Politics. As we begin our new year of shows, what better way to have our first guest is Nashville's new mayor, Megan Barry. She's going to be joining us today. Mayor, thanks as always for coming by and being on the show, and thanks for all you do to help us here at News Channel 5.
Thank you, Pat. Thanks for inviting me. Happy New Year.
Now, you've already been in office 100 days plus. I guess it's true.
105.
Time does fly when you're having fun?
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
Now, your predecessor, Carl Dean, talked a lot about how much he looked forward every day to getting up and being the mayor. And do you sort of feel that same zest and enthusiasm that he did, or is there something that's happened yet that you didn't expect or didn't like?
No, this is great. I mean, this is going to be the best job I ever have. And I absolutely feel that every day.
Now, there was one incident that occurred a couple of weeks ago where you were out with usually the mayor is always out with a driver or an aide, and you observed a domestic violence incident, and you intervened in it. It was out on broad daylight. It was on the street.
Right.
What were you thinking? Weren't you concerned you were putting yourself in danger by doing that? Well,
you know, what I was more worried about was that this incident was happening in broad daylight. And you know, I mean, I've been on the YW board, and domestic violence has always been something that is very close to my heart, and I don't want to see anybody in that situation. So, you know, not intervening wasn't really an option.
But did your police officer or person who was with you sort of guide you about how maybe you do that in the future? Let me help you with that or something, or let me get some other assistance?
So, you know, I was with a police officer, and the police officer was the one who took the necessary action and made sure that that person was safe.
Nashville likes to see and hear their mayors a lot. You've been in office over 100 days now, but you've made even more speeches and appearances. I mean, they want our mayors to be out there and be involved and be at all their events.
That's true.
Do you have time to do your regular work, which is run the government?
Well, you have to balance it. And one of the things that I've been really lucky to do is to put together a very talented and very diverse staff in the mayor's office that makes sure that a lot of those governmental functions are running smoothly day to day so that I can be more present.
You kind of had to be mayor and run the government while you're assembling the team at the same time. The airplane's already going down the runway and flying, and you're still putting on the wings and the seats and everything else. You've put together perhaps the most diverse team ever in the mayor's office, particularly in terms of gender and race. Was that your plan? I mean, you're shattering all the glass ceilings for both women and minorities at the courthouse. Is that what you sort of thought you were going to do when you got started?
Well, when I was on the campaign trail, I talked specifically about making sure that government looks like Nashville. And I've been able to go out and do that by finding incredibly talented people who also reflect Nashville. So it's been very deliberate.
Now, everyone likes the concept of diversity. They all like the idea of metro government looking like the rest of Nashville, but on the bottom line, what's in it for the taxpayers? What will make metro government better because of what you're doing in terms of gender diversity?
Well, I mean, I think when we look at private industry and a lot of the studies out there that talk about if you have a diverse organization, you're much more successful. And we know that if you are, if the folks in the government represent the people who they live with and in the neighborhoods that they live with, you're going to have a better and more efficient government.
Now, part of putting together your team is making board appointments, and the mayor has lots of board appointments to make, and the council has to confirm them. One of those you've named in recent days is one of your former mayoral opponents, Bill Freeman. He's going to be on the airport authority. I suspect some people might be surprised about that because they weren't sure necessarily that you were friends anymore since you've been opponents.
Well, you know, just because you're an opponent doesn't mean that you don't also have some common ground. And Bill is going to be filling the position of a pilot. Bill is a pilot. He's got long history of flying, and he's going to bring a really great voice to the airport authority. And I'm excited to have that proposition for him to go to council.
This may not be a fair question, but let me take it one more place. You had a runoff opponent, David Fox, in a very tough runoff campaign. If he was interested and you had the proper appointment for a board, would you be interested in involving him in your administration in some ways with one of the boards and commissions?
I haven't heard from David, but I had heard from Bill, and Bill had expressed an interest.
Okay. One thing you did talk about last summer particularly was to have a summit about youth violence. So you've had that since you've been in office. We've had a rash, a great rise in that lately. You've put yourself a pretty firm deadline of March to have an action plan put together. Have you got enough time to put what you need together to come up with that plan? Yeah,
we're moving very aggressively on this. I don't think this is something that we can wait on. And Lonnell Matthews in my office has taken the lead on this. We have 3 more pieces of this that will be happening over the next few months. And ultimately, for me, this is about connecting youth to hope, and that means to jobs.
I saw an interview that you did with one publication here in town where you mentioned specifically the city of Boston and what they're doing in the area of jobs and internships. Talk about what that might be.
So when we look at Boston, they've been able to put, they're a similar sized city, they've put close to 10,000 youth in jobs and internships through their program, and I want us to do that too.
These are not make work kind of jobs where they're sweeping streets and doing stuff like that?
There's definitely sweeping streets, and there's being part of the parks, and it's not all government. This is about making sure that youth are also engaged in the private sector, and I think we have a tremendous opportunity in Nashville to bring the private sector involved.
Do you see this being run by the government itself, by some agency here in town? Or are you going to involve nonprofits or private business to run it?
Well, definitely. I mean, the one thing that's been really great for Nashville in the past has been that collaboration with not-for-profits, for-profits, and government, and I see this as much more of a collaboration. There are lots of organizations out there that are already putting kids to work. We just need to harness all of that.
One last question about this topic, a little bit different. We've also seen, after having an all-time low in murders in 2014, we saw a 5-year increase of the highest in 5 years last year. Do you need a plan to also address adult violence and particularly murders?
I mean, when you look at where our murder rate is, my focus right now is definitely on the youth piece, because a lot of the youth violence has culminated in some kind of violence that involves a youth, either shooting another one or being the victim. And so, yeah, we have a lot to do on this, but I think you've seen this trend up over all across the United States, but it doesn't make it any better when it's your town and your responsibility.
Mayor Megan Barry is our guest on Inside Politics as we start the new year. Back to continue our conversation with the mayor after this break.